Drugémon, The Long Road to Recovery, Chapter 6. The walls close in author's note. The following chapter is experienced entirely from the perspective of Pikachu. The world is sharper, the sounds are more acute, and the familiar is tinged with the paranoia of withdrawal and confinement. The sound was the first thing, a heavy, final clank as a door of immense thickness locked into place. The smell was the second, antiseptic, clean, and utterly devoid of the familiar, comforting scent of ash. I was alone. The room was a soft, white prison. The walls were padded, curved, and seamless, offering no corners to hide in, no texture to grip. The light was a constant, shadowless glow from an unseen source, a perpetual daytime that offered no respite. The door, the one through which Ash had disappeared, had no handle, no seam, no way out. It was just another part of the wall. I scurried to it, my claws finding no purchase on its smooth surface. I scratched and sniffed, searching for the lingering trace of my friend, my partner, my world. Pikachu. My calls were small and questioning, swallowed by the sound-dampening panels of the room. Where was he? Why had he left me here? A small slot in the door, one I hadn't noticed before, slid open with a soft whir. A bowl of grey, nutrient-rich paste slid through, along with a small dish of water. It was not food, it was fuel. It smelled of nothing, and I ignored it, my entire being consumed by a rising tide of anxiety. He had abandoned me. The days that followed blurred into a montage of misery. The withdrawal was a physical monster, a beast with its claws sunk deep into my flesh. One moment I was curled in a tight ball, my entire body a single unified ache, shivering with a cold that came from deep within my bones. The next, I was possessed by a frantic, useless energy, pacing the small, circular room like a caged animal, my cheeks sparking erratically. But the sparks were weak, pathetic things, fizzling out before they could even form, a pale imitation of the power I once wielded. Sometimes the door would open, and a Chansey would enter. From my low angle it was a huge, imposing mountain of pink and white, its smile a grotesque, meaningless gesture. It would try to soothe me, its touch clinical and unwanted, and I would recoil, hissing, a cornered animal with no corner to retreat to. Eventually, the gnawing emptiness in my stomach would win, and I would reluctantly eat the bland, unsatisfying paste, the texture like chalk in my mouth, and through it all I cried out for him. My calls, at first frantic and demanding, slowly grew weaker, more hopeless, until they were nothing more than a mournful whisper in the silent, white room. Ash. After an eternity, the door to my white prison opened, and I was guided into a larger space. It was a large, circular room with a high, glass ceiling that showed a flat, indifferent sky. Other Pokémon were here, scattered like discarded toys, all in various states of quiet despair. An Alakazam sat in a corner, meditating, its spoons drooping with a metallic sadness. A group of Meowths were listlessly batting at a ball of yarn, their movements devoid of any real playfulness. A large, sad-looking Charizard, its inner fire seemingly extinguished, stared at a blank wall as if seeing some terrible, private memory. Everything was safe. Everything was controlled. There were no loud noises, no sudden movements, no chaos. For a being like me, who had come to thrive on the chaotic, electric energy of the drug, this placid, sterile environment was unnerving, almost suffocating. It was a silence that screamed. A kindly-looking Wigglytuff, its round, pink form radiating a practiced calm, approached me. It spoke in a soft, gentle voice, the Pokémon equivalent of a lullaby. "Welcome, Pikachu," it said, the meaning clear even if the words were not my own. "You are safe here. This is a place of healing. I shrank away. I didn't feel safe. I felt trapped." My eyes darted around, looking for a way out, but there were no obvious exits, only the same smooth, white, seamless walls of my smaller prison. And then I felt it, a constricting presence around my neck. A small, glowing collar had been placed on me. I tried to summon a spark, a tiny flicker of my own power, but the collar glowed brighter and the energy fizzled into nothing, absorbed and neutralized. They had taken my power. They had taken my identity. I felt naked, vulnerable, and a new feeling began to smolder beneath the fear. Anger. They put me in circles. Group therapy, they called it. The Wigglytuff would lead. its voice a constant, gentle drone. Around me were the other broken toys, a Mankey that couldn't stop fidgeting, a Slowpoke that was perpetually asleep, and a Psyduck that held its head as if it were about to explode. "Today," the Wigglytuff began, its words a meaningless hum, "we will talk about the Pokémon we miss, the ones we left behind. It is important to acknowledge the pain of separation." The Psyduck began to talk, its voice a miserable quack full of confusion and headaches about its trainer. I didn't listen. The words were nothing to me. All I could feel was a burning, white-hot resentment. Ash had left me here. He had promised he would be right there, and then he had shut the door. He had abandoned me in this white, silent prison. The memory of his face, the one I had clung to, began to warp and twist in my mind. The look of love and pain I remembered was replaced by the cold, hard face of a betrayer. This therapy, this place that was supposed to help, was only cementing the narrative in my mind. I had been wronged. I had been imprisoned. My eyes stopped looking for comfort and started observing. I watched the routines of the staff. I watched the guards, a stoic, unmoving Blastoise and a vigilant, pacing Arcanine. I watched the way the doors opened and closed, the timing of the food deliveries, the shift changes. The desire to be healed, a desire I had never really understood, was being replaced by a new, more powerful and much clearer drive, the desire to escape. Once a day they let us outside. The yard was a perfectly manicured circle of grass, enclosed by the same high, white, featureless walls. Above, a powerful energy barrier shimmered against the sky, a transparent lid on our cage, preventing any flying Pokémon from even thinking about freedom. I ignored the other Pokémon. I walked the perimeter of the yard, my paws silent on the soft grass, studying the wall. I looked for a weakness, a seam, a crack, anything. There was nothing. I tried to climb, but the wall was perfectly smooth, offering no purchase. I tried to dig, but the turf was a shallow lie, laid over a solid concrete foundation. I looked up at the sky, at the shimmering energy barrier, and saw a Pidgey fly past, high above, utterly and completely free. A deep, primal yearning for that freedom, and for the power that came with the drug, the power that had once made me feel as if I could fly, burned within me. This place had taken everything, my friend, my power, my freedom. The resentment hardened, coalescing into a cold, sharp point. It hardened into a plan. That night, I lay on my small, designated sleeping mat in the large, communal dormitory. The other Pokémon were asleep, their soft breathing a rhythmic counterpoint to the silence. The only light came from the faint, mocking glow of our power, suppressing collars. I did not sleep. I watched. I listened. I heard the rhythmic footfalls of the Arcanine Guard as it made its patrol in the hallway. I noticed the faint, almost imperceptible hum of the energy barrier high above the yard. And through the glass ceiling of the common area, I saw the storm clouds gathering, the sky darkening with a familiar, promising turmoil. A storm was coming. The fear and confusion that had plagued me for so long were gone, burned away by the cold fire of my new purpose. In their place was a look of cunning and resolve. I was no longer a patient. I was a prisoner, and these walls were not for my healing. They were a challenge to be overcome. I would be free, and I would have my power back.